Welcome to this video series on decision-making in plagiarism and dealing with gray zones across academic fields. This is the second of 3 videos. Thorsten Beck will speak about image plagiarism. The 3 videos in the series were also part of a live webinar at Elsevier's Researcher Academy. The speaker for this video is Dr. Thorsten Beck. He is a researcher at the HEAD Center, which is short for Humboldt-Elsevier Advanced Data and Text Center, where we focus our research and educational efforts on research integrity. Thorsten Beck now begins with a section on image plagiarism.
When it comes to plagiarism, one may think mainly about text, but of course images can be plagiarized as well, only that slightly different terms are applied. Image manipulation has many faces, and plagiarism is among one of the most pressing concerns since, and that's especially true ever since the advent of the internet, photographs are copied, artwork reused without proper attribution or even without asking for permission. It is hard to oversee the scope of the problem since there is no mechanism to count all cases that occur, but among all image-related issues on the Retraction Watch database, for example, about half are labeled image duplication. In 2018, Elizabeth Big and colleagues have estimated that in the field of biomedicine alone, about 35,000 articles have to be withdrawn due to duplicated images. From the definition you see on this slide, we learn that any form of intellectual content can be plagiarized. Not only texts, but other containers of information, and certainly images are among them. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you some examples of how images are plagiarized, how it is sometimes challenging to draw a line between citing and plagiarizing a picture, how image plagiarism can be detected, and last not least, how to reference images. What you see on this slide is a case of image self-plagiarism, a case retrieved from the Retraction Watch blog. Here you see that sometimes image plagiarism or self-plagiarism is a combination of various types of image manipulation. For example, images are rotated, mirrored, colors are changed, and so on, which underlines the fraudulent nature of such intentional image recycling. As you can learn from this example, terms like image duplication or reuse and recycling are used instead of plagiarism. But basically these terms describe a very similar phenomenon. The same applies when only parts or regions of images are copied and reused. Now, are there differences between text and image plagiarism? One obvious difference is that using images requires the acquisition of rights and permission from the creator of the work. This also applies to images in a scientific or scholarly context. It is not uncommon that, depending on how the image is used, one has to pay for the right to reproduce an image, which makes it sometimes impossible to use images or to report about cases of inappropriate image use. Here is an example that shows how thin the line between appropriate image use and plagiarism can be. In 2018, American artist Willis Thomas was accused of plagiarism when he exhibited a photo at the Johannesburg Art Fair at Goodman Gallery, based on an earlier work of Graham Williams, a South African photographer. Williams, when he saw the work on display, was shocked and called Thomas's artwork a theft, plagiarism, appropriation of his original photograph. Indeed, when comparing both pictures, one finds Thomas's adaptation of Williams's photograph to be a more or less identical grayscale reprint in which the school children in the foreground are highlighted. Williams's original photograph depicts police officers who watch an ANC rally while school children taunt them, a picture that became emblematic for the fall of the apartheid regime. At the art fair, Willis Thomas' work was offered for sale at a rate much higher than what Williams earned with the original photo. It must be emphasized that it is Williams's approach to use motifs from advertisement campaigns and public media out of context, thus critically questioning the influence of images on public opinion. In response to Williams's criticism, Willis Thomas raised the question of whether it shouldn't be possible to use images that have been in circulation for decades and use them as, quote, people would quote from a book. He asked, quote, if a photograph is 25 years old, 40, 100 years old of public events where most people who are in the photograph are not given control over how they are depicted and what's happening, when is it ours as a society to wrestle with? End of quote. There we have the controversy, and you may judge for yourself, is Thomas's artwork appropriate, or rather to be considered plagiarism? Should an artist have the right just to do anything? And if Thomas's work represents an acceptable form of citation, should he then not have added some sort of reference to the original photograph and its author? No doubt, the artistic appropriation of another photographer's work is not just a simple form of duplication, which happens in other fields often enough. But still, because Thomas's changes on the original photograph were so minor, such a case could well end up in court. As the above-mentioned case taught us, often plagiarized works only surface due to circumstances, or accidentally, when someone recognizes a motive, a photograph, a work of art. At the same time, the answer to the question may vary depending on which field we look at. Different standards apply in the art world than in scientific works, for example. But let us think of a concrete use case. What if a photographer wanted to systematically check the internet for plagiarized versions of his or her work? There are various tools available on the internet that may be considered helpful when it comes to plagiarism detection, such as a reverse image search using the Google search by image function or TinEye. Such tools execute similarity searches across the internet and can be helpful to detect unauthorized image reuses. Another possibility is to protect your own images by registering them via the Flag Hunter online tool. There you upload and register your image, and the tool is supposed to send you a notification whenever your image is used on a website. Thus, the creators of the tool claim it to be possible to track every reuse and copyright violation of a registered image. You may want to check for yourself how reliable such a service works. It is even more complicated to screen scholarly articles for plagiarized images, since there's currently no solution available to automatically check images against the database of all published images. Still, there's of course a chance that stolen images are detected when articles are analyzed on post-publication platforms such as Papier or in the editorial review process. Avoiding inappropriate image use that results in plagiarism requires applying standards for a citation that are sometimes even more detailed than text references. As part of the reference, it is of course necessary to cite the source from which the image was retrieved, for example a website or a publication. But as you conduct your research, it is highly recommendable to keep track of more pieces of information such as the image creator's name, the date of the image, when the image was created, the date when the image was posted online, the date of access, the owning institution, for example a gallery or museum, the address of the website or the database name. There are many different standards and formats when it comes to image citation, and they vary across fields. When the source of an image is a journal, the image must be referenced and cited together with the article, which again includes information on the authors, source, and copyright information of an image. There are voices who claim all processing steps and manipulations should be documented in detail in the image caption. Most importantly, even if images are retrieved online, one should never expect they are free to use. For each image that is used in publication, you may have to search for copyright information and ask permission. There are images that are free to use, as for example when they are in the public domain with a Creative Commons license, or copyright free. And anyway, you've got to keep track of all the information necessary to prove you have the permission to use images in your publication and include this information in your citation. It's worthwhile to mention that many cases of inappropriate image plagiarism happen due to error. Data gets mixed up, is mislabeled, or prepared for publication by someone not involved in your experiments, for example. It may sound obvious, but proper data management is certainly key to avoiding inappropriate image plagiarism. For more practical information, you may want to have a look into the list of references at the end of our presentation.
Thank you very much for listening. Feel free to contact us at info@het.eu.